Battle of the Mad Scientists, USA versus USSR, Secret World War II Projects World War II. An era where logic often retreated in the face of sheer desperation. We've all heard of Hitler's Wunderwaffe, the 1,000-ton tanks and miracle weapons. But what was happening in the secret laboratories of the Allies? While the fate of the world was being decided on the front lines, engineers in the US and the USSR were fighting their own invisible war. A war of the strangest, most shocking, and sometimes absolutely useless inventions. Today, we're pitting the secret developments of two superpowers against each other: flying tanks versus bat bombs, pigeon-guided missiles versus robot killers. Who was crazier in their pursuit of victory? Stick around until the end. Some of these projects will make you question reality itself. Let's dive in. Round 1. Biological warfare. Round 1 is biological, and we're not talking about viruses, but rather how both sides tried to turn animals into instruments of destruction. Honestly, the Americans showed a level of Looney Tunes creativity here that is hard to beat. USA, Project X-ray and pigeon guidance, picture this, 1942. America wants to burn down Japanese cities, which are mostly built of wood. How do you do it effectively? Engineers suggest bats. This was Project X-ray. The plan was to take thousands of Mexican free-tailed bats, strap tiny napalm bombs to them with timers, chill them into hibernation, and drop them in canisters over Japan. Upon release, the bats would wake up, fly away, and hide in the eaves of Japanese houses. Then, the timers would go off. The shocking part? It actually worked. During a test, escaped bats accidentally burned down an entire mock-up Japanese village and, ironically, a U.S. Air Force hangar along with a general's car. The project was only canceled because the atomic bomb became the new priority. But that's not all. Psychologist B.F. Skinner proposed Project Pigeon. Why build complex electronics when you have birds? 3 pigeons were placed inside the nose cone of a missile. They were trained to peck at a target on a screen. Their pecks moved the control fins, steering the missile. It was literally an organic computer. The military eventually shut it down because they couldn't take a bird-brained missile seriously, despite its incredible accuracy. USSR, anti-tank dogs. The Soviet Union responded with its own animal project. It was far more pragmatic, brutal, and tragic. Anti-tank dogs. Facing a catastrophic shortage of anti-tank weapons early in the war, the USSR decided to use dogs as mobile mines. Dogs were trained to find food under tanks. In battle, they were fitted with explosives and a detonator lever. The dog was supposed to dive under a German tank. The lever would hit the chassis, and boom. In reality, it was a disaster. The dogs were terrified of the noise and ran back to their own trenches, endangering Soviet troops. Even worse, they were trained on Soviet diesel tanks, while German tanks used gasoline. The dogs didn't recognize the smell of the enemy and often ran under their own T-34s. It remains one of the saddest chapters of military engineering. Round 2, Air and Ground Monsters. Biology was weird, but let's look at the heavy metal. How do you fly a tank into battle? And can a tank fight without a crew? USSR, the flying tank and teletanks. Narrator: Soviet engineer Oleg Antonov solved the problem of airborne armor with pure Russian bluntness. If a tank won't fit in a plane, make the tank into a plane. The A-40 wings of a tank. They took a light T-60 tank and literally bolted massive biplane wings and a tail onto it. It was towed by a heavy bomber, released to glide onto the battlefield, drop its wings, and drive straight into combat. It actually flew once in 1942. But the drag was so high, the bomber's engines nearly melted. The project was grounded. But the USSR was also a pioneer in robotics. Before the war even started, they created teletanks. These were radio-controlled machines without crews, equipped with flamethrowers and machine guns. They were used in the Winter War and the early days of World War II. Imagine a zombie tank rolling toward you, spewing fire. The problem? The operator had to stay within a mile, and the signal was easily lost. If the robot hit a ditch, it stayed there. USA, the flying pancake. Meanwhile, the Americans were experimenting with aerodynamics that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. Meet the WWII, also known as the flying pancake. This was a prototype for a vertical takeoff fighter. Its entire body was one giant wing. When people in Connecticut saw it testing in the 40s, UFO reports skyrocketed. Despite its ridiculous look, it was incredibly stable and could hover at extreme angles. But like many projects, it was overtaken by the dawn of the jet age. Bonus round. The Ice Carrier. Before we wrap up, here is a project that combined British and American madness. During the height of the Battle of the Atlantic, steel was in short supply. Someone suggested, why don't we build an aircraft carrier out of ice? Project Habakkuk. It was supposed to be 2,000 feet long, but it wasn't just ice, it was pykrete, a mixture of ice and wood pulp. It was as strong as concrete, didn't melt easily, and was virtually unsinkable. They actually built a 1,000-ton model in Canada. But when they realized how much energy it would take to keep it frozen in the middle of the ocean, they went back to steel. Fire-starting bats, winged tanks, ice ships, and mine-carrying dogs. Today, these look like diesel punk fantasies, but in a world on the brink, the line between genius and insanity was non-existent. Some of these ideas paved the way for modern drones and missiles. Others, just strange footnotes in history. Now, I want to hear from you. Which project was the most shocking? The American bat bombs or the Soviet flying tank? Let's argue in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the weird side of history, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more secret files to open. See you in the next one.